there, isn't it?
And that, of course, is also based on having been down in Cornwall, is St. Creed Well, which I think is one of the most mysterious, amazing wells I ever encountered. St. Creed is just absolutely wonderful. It's like being within the womb of a mother, within the earth. Very sacred place, very powerful place. And above is this tree full of clucus. And of course, the mermaid again, of the Senna. And now I don't know about, this one. I don't know what's happened to her. This Black Madonna sort of wood carving that was found. There was St. Agnes.
Yeah.
And what's happened to her since? And she looks very definitely African to me.
She's
Not in the museum?
No, I think she's in one of the shops.
Yeah, they're all.
Yes, but she was in the shop, but she was covered over. I mean, they didn't want people to see it. They had something placed right in front of her, so you couldn't see her. Have you seen her recently?
I'll go and find out.
But please. I think she's very beautiful, and I think she's genuine as well. But apparently they thought that she might have been in a mine, a very ancient mine, and that she got washed out in the sea. And apparently she was found by a fisherman or something on the beach. Of course, then they tried to say, no, it's not genuine, and it's newly carved, and it's ugly. Of course, it's ugly because she's a black woman, and so on. But I'm sorry, I thought that she had great dignity, and I think it's a very beautiful piece of work, and I thought it was very odd. And I think people should treasure this, in Cornwall. So you're going to find out?
Yes.
Yeah, please. Yeah, and that one actually I did as a result of Cheryl telling me about having been on a full moon night at Boscavenan. And didn't you say that you saw the full moon sort of being caught on the stone and shining right onto the stone, the quartz stone?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what inspired this image. This is also inspired by Cornwall, but on a lizard. I don't know if you know, it's quite close to, just before you get to the end of the lizard, by the sea.
Oh,
Finance. What?
Finance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is some incredible rocks.
Yeah.
Like serpentine stones, a serpentine rock, purple, red, green, blue. And have you seen this enormous rock in the center? It just looks to me like a grieving being, but genderless actually. I couldn't think of it as either female or male. It's extraordinary. So that's what inspired this painting, which I call Spirits of the Sky, Earth and Underworld. And I was also attempting here to make an angel, which is mixed race. Of course, I'm sick to the teeth of all the new age stuff of white angels, white fairies, white this, white that. You know what I mean? This is a mixed race angel. Earth is black. Now why are fairies always white, Tell me that. Spirits of the earth. This is a drawing I did of that incredible rock. Do you recognize this rock I'm talking about? It's huge, and it looks like that.
What, from Kynance?
In that place you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Go and have a look again, this was incredible. The energy there is phenomenally powerful, This one I call Enter Belly Lift Up the World, and this is on Carnegie, or the Preseli Mountains, where I lived 5 years near Fishguard actually. This is not far from Carnegie. And the story there was that I was walking on the pretty wild New Year's Day. New Year's Eve is my birthday. New Year's Day, up in the foothills of Carnegie with a friend. And I saw this is sort of in between time and also the twilight, dusk. And I saw, as clear as anything in the distance, a huge white bird with a light shining out of his belly. And I turned to my friend and said, did you see that? Turned my head back again, and I saw a car with the searchlights on, but I had seen that bird. Yeah? So when I came back home, I found that 3 weeks earlier I had a dream of a winged bird goddess with a serpent's tail, and I'd written underneath, and her belly lit up the word, a light was shining out of her belly. You know? So that is where this painting comes from. I know I saw that bird. You know? Oh, this is the wrong way around, but anyway. It's, I call the goddess, second land of the goddess Cornwall. It's a very large painting, 8 feet long. With a quote there as well. And what happened there was that I was there with Maggie and Phil. I just went and lay inside the stone that has fallen down inside. I was in there for, I don't know, just can't have been more than a few minutes or something. But when I was in there, I sort of had this kind of, I almost saw like fetuses and the stones. I thought I heard the people who lived there, you know, and the thing is, when I came out from there, I don't know what happened to me. I just started screaming and crying. I was just completely freaked out. Again, this sort of sense of what we've lost. Do you know what we've lost? You remember that, Maggie, don't you? I couldn't believe, I couldn't believe that I was reacting like that, It's extraordinary. This is turning all around as well. Oh dear. Anyway, this is the triple Caribbean at pt3 Cornwall, with the cunningly set mountain in the background. Like that. Which is one of the most beautiful Neolithic sites, And I sat there sometimes and people started coming up to me asking me questions like I was some sort of oracle. It's quite extraordinary. I slept under there, by the way, like Jill. I have slept inside West Lombardo, but just with Maggie actually. Maggie and me slept in there once, which was extraordinary. It's a different thing to sleep in the spaces and just be sitting there. And I slept underneath this cromlech once with 3 other women, and it was pouring rain all around us. And that was a weird one, very weird one. And actually for weeks after that I dreamt about cromlechs and did several paintings as a result. That's seen from behind. It's a chrysalis above and the sea below. It's the most beautiful place. And it was originally surrounded by an oblong, not egg-shaped, but oblong mound. So like the cromlech was a gateway into the mound, which apparently the Druids still call the womb of Caribbean. And I understand they used it as a place of initiations and shamanic initiations. But of course, as we know, all these places are far older than the Druids, belong to the ancient Neolithic peoples of the land. This is another painting I did at the time, which I called Welsh Lunar Cromlech and Tree Beings. And the strange thing is that the only time I've ever painted a wheel like that is a connection with cromlechs. Never ever otherwise, and I have no idea why I've done that. I just have no idea. Which is very strange.
It's almost like a light that comes out from within.
Sorry?
It feels like a light that's coming out from, like a source of light from within.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, like focus on it, it looks as if those spokes are moving, right? So it's almost like something coming out of there.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
energetically.
Yeah. And as I say, I've never ever made a wheel like that except for this one and another painting of cromlech. Well, that's interesting to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, of course, this one. This is my interpretation of spirit beings up on this incredible rock formations like on Bodmin Moor, where me and Maggie had a very powerful experience. I think it's very, very powerful land, you know, on those moorlands. Those moors, I mean those tours on the moors, they are something else. They are incredible, incredible, you know. The power that emanates from them is just extraordinary. And so this one I call Nordic Mother of the Animals, and it's based on petroglyphs by a mighty river, on rocks by a mighty river in the north of Sweden from the Neolithic, about 4000 BCE. And there are hundreds and hundreds of petroglyphs of elk cows, not elk, not horned elks, elk cows. The sacred elk cow, like the sacred bear mother, you know, they were worshipped, you know, as a great goddess by these people who were hunter-gatherers, and would have been ancestors to the Sami people of today. So this is my interpretation of this sort of this strange form, you know, of this figure standing there with the elk's crown. She kind of just appears magically. She appeared magically. Oh, upside down. Right. Oh, yes. But this is an elk cow from the Neolithic. And in amongst these petroglyphs of all these hundreds and hundreds of elk cows, there is one single elk cow that's got an arrow embedded in it. One single elk cow. And that is the one that's reproduced on posters. And the archaeologists, of course, talk about pictures of great big white hunters, you know, white shaman men and so on. Well, in fact, this would have been some people after people who lived here, you know. So the Swedish archaeologists are just as racist. Believe it or not. This is a drawing I did of some of the petroglyphs on these rocks, and it looks to me very much like shaman women on the spirit boats. And I was amazed to find that the spirit boats had elk cows on their prows. You know, I mean, like, of course, the Vikings had dragon heads, you know, but these are elk cows' heads. And the spirit boat was a symbol of the goddess, you know, even in later time in Scandinavia. Narthus was a ship that the dead, you know, traveled into the underworld, to the other world, over the rim of the world. And of course the ship itself is formed, you know, it's like a vaginal form, and it's a womb. The ship inside of the ship is like a womb. Mm-hmm. So it's seen very much as a symbol of the goddess. This is some, yeah, you can see for yourself, these are some of the petroglyphs I'm talking about. And this is a county where I come from. I mean, you know, this is actually my home space, you know. And this is one of the great rocks with lots and lots of these petroglyphs. And I was in a sort of in a community, alternative community nearby. And a group of us women, about 5 of us women, went up in a little rowing boat out to this rock in the night. And it was around midsummer, so it was completely light. You know, it's a white light of the north. But the sky is completely light, but there's no direct sunshine, so it's kind of strange, it's very strange. I mean, after many years in this country, you know, I've almost forgotten what it's like with the midsummer nights, you know. Which is pure magic, it's pure magic, you know. Because the strange thing is, of course, that the land all around you is dark, it's not lit up. You know what I mean? Like if there's a lake, it's like a pool, like a mirror that reflects the sky, and the sky is light, but there is no sun. You know, so it's kind of eerie, you know. And anyway, we went up to these cliffs here, and I and another woman got into knocking, you know, also what you call it, she had a piece of stone, and I had a piece of wood, and we sort of rhythmically tapped these petroglyphs, and got into like a trance state, and we felt like we were actually enacting something that the ancient peoples would have done, because they saw the rocks itself as the embodiment of the goddess. and that that is the ancestors, spiritual ancestors lived within the rocks. At one way they would have connected with those ancestors would have been by this kind of rhythmic tapping, I'm quite sure. But anyway, so a lot of my work actually came out of that experience. I'm sure that the spirits did speak to us that night. Anyway, these are Sami people, the people of the wind and the sun, who say we are the land, without the land we are nothing, and don't believe in ownership of land, which of course they've been persecuted by the Swedish state, by the nation states that Norway, Finland and Sweden have been trying to hem in the Samis and make it impossible for them to follow their reindeer herds, and trying to settle them down, trying to Christianize them, you name it, And like all other indigenous peoples have been treated in the same way. But they have been better off. I mean, they have not succumbed, like many Native Americans and so on, have succumbed to alcohol and, living on reservations and their culture totally destroyed and a sense of hopelessness. The Sami people have not got they haven't got into quite that situation, luckily enough. This is a shamanic drum and the traditional costume of a Sami person, that sort of silver jewelry, which would have been used at weddings and funerals and things. And a lot of the Sami drums were either stolen, destroyed, hidden, found in museums in Stockholm in Germany, and never returned to the Sami people. They were forbidden to play them because they were connected with their pagan past. They were forbidden to sing in their way. Some of their shamans, the Noids, who mean those who can see in the darkness, were burnt at the stake. Some of them, not many, but some. And this is in about the 18th century, or the 17th, 18th centuries, because Christianity came up there very, very late in time. Well, this is my interpretation of a shaman priestess on Glastonbury tour, actually. But what I used was this image, which I all the time thought, I read the text where it said that it was the Greenland shaman in Inuit. But then I saw it the other day in a different text, and it said that it was a Mongol, a Mongol shamanka from a part of China, like hundreds of years ago. Holding the birds and all the sticks. This one I call Summerland, because I was talking about the Samis, I'm showing things I've done of shamanic images in Summerland, of like entering into, again, like through this gateway into the fairy world. And what I used there was these are two shamankas from pre-Aztec Mexico. Tiny little images, tiny little sculptures, which I think are beautiful. And that one, this is one of them. And this is from Lake Baikal in Siberia. It's a shamanic figure carved in wood. The thing is, it haunted me because it looks like my mother. Just where my mother looked very Slavic. I don't know how old she is. Well, this is from Sweden as well. I call it Sun Goddess. And I used other petroglyphs. It's the petroglyphs from the Bronze Age, which are very different from the ones up north, and a couple of thousand years younger. But Swedish Bronze Age was still the time of the goddess. And many of the sort of great graves was actually of important priestesses of women, buried with horses, with wagons, with weapons, with, you name it. Some of the most important burial sites from the Bronze Age. So you have the boats again, and people dancing and playing music, and very joyful. All the spectacles are very joyful from the Bronze Age. They are dancing, and like there's a woman acrobat. There's quite a few petroglyphs of ships with women acrobats sort of doing somersaults above the boat. And this are from a place, it's a World Heritage place called Tanum, which is on the sort of southwest coast of Sweden, not far from the Norwegian border. And this was very much to me like women rolling the solar wheel. They tend to signify women by these plaits, these long plaits, and they're pushing the solar wheel. The sun was always female in the north, by the way. We still always say the sun, she, like in German, the die Sonne is female. Sunna was the ancient sun of the north. And the Scandinavians never went for this when the Indo-European peoples came in an Iron Age, led by Odin's priests. And by the way, I detest Odin and his priesthood. And so did the peasantry of Sweden. They just hated Odin, who was the god of the conquerors, of the oppressors. He was the god of the oppressors, And of course they tried to introduce a male sun, but that never went down very well in the north, Because after the very long winter months and snow and darkness, when the sun comes, she's a benevolent mother, bringing fertility to the land and life to her children. He was never seen as a male, ever. And this is again inspired by petroglyphs, of serpents, lots and lots of zigzag sort of serpents, and bird figures. Actually, this is the dance and the flight of the cranes. The cranes are taken to the goddess, and apparently the cranes dance in a ritual manner, like a labyrinthine dance. I haven't actually seen the cranes dance. I would dearly love to see it. Apparently it's absolutely miraculous and marvelous. This is the cranes. And the cranes are red, white and black, colours of the goddess. Extraordinary birds. This I call the bird goddess. The cranes again. And from the Neolithic came out bird mask goddesses. And of course the birds travel between the worlds, like the serpents travel between the worlds, so do the birds. This is, by the way, I'm sitting in a Bronze Age labyrinth, not far from those petroglyphs, by the way, which is from Bronze Age. And this is inland in Sweden. In Sweden there are something like 300 labyrinths, and quite a few are found on the Baltic coast up north, on the cliffs. Those are the ones that might be of more recent times, the man said that the fishermen ran through. These labyrinths are something entirely different. They're much, much, much more ancient. And on the island of Gotland, which is what was a very ancient culture of Gotland in the Baltic, I actually walked through 3 immense labyrinths, probably from the Bronze Age, 3 of them, during a week when I was staying there. Which was, And of course that's again from the Scilly Isles. And you know that from the Rocky Valley. And I believe, of course I believe that dancing or walking through labyrinths, you are sometimes going to the left, you're sometimes going to the right. It's almost like you're joining the 2 halves of the brain. You are joining heaven and earth. You're entering into a trance state. I mean, I just find walking through labyrinths a very, very powerful experience. And you are walking right into the womb of the mother to die, and you walk out of her to be reborn again, that's how I see it. And the hope is called Labyrinth's Mother Earth. And what we found when Maggie and I think, was it Maggie and I again? We were down at this small labyrinths and carvings at the Rocky Valley, just tiny little ones. And we found we dipped our fingers in some water and traced the whole labyrinth. It was like little droplets, like diamonds, all along, the pathways. And I we thought that this might have been one way, that the ancient peoples, by tracing them with their fingers, entered into trance state, meditating and tracing, the pattern. That's how I think they were used. Well, this is, I call it the fire dance in Dakini. And one reason I put it in is because, don't ask me, but many of my paintings I sort of join different elements from different places. So here you have the labyrinth from the Rocky Valley. And you also got this whirlpool with the waterfalls from Rocky Valley as well, on that side, together with dancing Dakini on a volcano. And in the background is rocks and cliffs, huge rocks and cliffs from Yosemite Park in northeast California. Don't ask me how many, I seem to weave things together. But the fire dance in Dakini, well, that is of course from Hawaii, Pele, the Hawaiian volcanic bodies. I'm wrong. What's happened? We seem to have gone past one last Swedish. The president didn't put it in. I must have done. Sorry. Just see what it's done. No. Oh, I must have forgotten to do it in. Because what I also based the fire dancing Dakini on is a life-size wood-carved relief in a triptych, like an altarpiece, of Maria Magdalena, who is in the center of this life-size triptych. And Maria Magdalena has dreadlocks, and she's covered in skin. And it's most extraordinary image, and she's right in the center. Instead of a crucified Christ or Maria with a child or anything, here's Maria Magdalena, you know what I mean, like a wild woman. And I've never seen that before or since. And I saw this in the Museum of Medieval Art in Riebeck in Germany. And I've never seen it anywhere else. Presumably they were very hard at work destroying any altarpiece in Maria Magdalena as a sacred woman in the center and the guest, you know. Anyway, this is a goddess as a tree of life from an Egyptian urn. And my interpretation of the goddess as a tree of life. And I did this painting in 1971, which is very early. It's a 6-foot high painting. Life and death and rebirth. Well, this to me is a very important painting, which I call Mother Earth in Pain. The trees cut down, the seas polluted. And I did this painting at a time when they were cutting down 14,000 trees at Newbury to make a 5-minute bypass for cars, ancient woodland, the trees bleeding. And we actually went down there 2 days, I was a group of women from Bristol, walking through that beautiful woodland before they destroyed the trees. And people, of course, up in the trees, fighting every bit of the way to keep that land safe, you know, and they were defeated. And around the same time, there was this awful oil slick around Milford Haven in Pembrokeshire, and that coast is one of the most beautiful coasts in the world, in Pembrokeshire, you know, and it's my land, that's where I lived. So I was just devastated on 2 accounts, you know, sort of oil-smeared birds dying, you know, and Mother Earth screaming in pain. And I've been sort of wanting to use her in some sort of political action, or carrying her in demonstration, or just something. You know, we used her in the we had the women's action at the gates of a place outside of Bristol where they were growing, experimentally growing GM wheat. And we had a demonstration outside there. We did a ritual on an equinox day. And I had that painting there in front of the gates. But I would like to use her again. There's a bleeding yew at Nevern, very sacred tree, which with a sap that smells and tastes like blood, menstrual blood. The thing is that that's a very sacred tree, and it's a tree alleyway of yew trees at Nevern, which is just down the road from Petrograd Kromler. It's one of the most sacred areas I know of, is that particular, full of fairy paths and sites of earth slides and all sort of weird and wonderful things. And but a tree surgeon was let loose on this tree and cut off a branch, which he shouldn't have done. And she doesn't bleed from the trunk anymore. She's not bleeding from that chopped off branch. The nose is horrendous. It looked like a wound, you know, raw wound. But the story then went that this tree surgeon was haunted and committed suicide 6 months later. This is my interpretation of the tree people, tree yeah, forest people. And in the background is a tree screaming, you know, with the factory chimneys in the background, venting out smoke, destroying the trees in the forest. I believe actually that the patriarchs hate forests, they just hate forests. Forests are deep, dark, damp, not in straight lines, cannot, you know, and patriarchs always have to penetrate everything. They can, you know, these are impenetrable forests, you know. And, well, they are hard at work, destroying every living forest in this world, including now the Siberian taiga, the great ancient pine forest in Siberia. And I feel absolutely, you know, because I grew up in those forests in the north of Sweden, I just passionately love the forest. I just love the forest. It's full of goodness, the forest, of berries, and plants, and herbs, of mushrooms. You know, it's in any number of... People in Sweden are out in the forest every autumn picking all kinds of berries, all kinds of fungi, everything edible. You know what I mean? We know the wealth of those forests, you know. Well, this is the ancient goddess, one of the most ancient goddess, Mother Earth of Scandinavia, Nartus, as just a tree branch. Very, very stark tree branch, very abstract. Found in a bog in Denmark. And this is the Matrona, the three mothers. And this is another thing, you see, I have a sense of great mysteries associated, for example, with the mothers, the three. I mean, what it was, Sheila was talking about the 3 months. I believe that they are pre-Indo-European, that they belong to old Europe. Very, very ancient indeed. For example, in Germany, there were, and in the Gaul, there were great stone sanctuaries, originally wooden sanctuaries, that's huge stone sanctuaries, dedicated to the Triple Mothers, who apparently were Earth, Sun, and Moon. And I've read that in an absolutely straight, non-feminist, non-goddess German text, where it says that the Triple Mothers represent Moon, Sun, and Earth. Well, that's amazing in itself, you know. And then they were worshipped, they had priestesses. The priestesses of the Triple Mothers were oracles who worked in these great sanctuaries, where there were holy wells. And I think this is where women came to give birth. And it was something like hundreds of these shrines in Gaul and in Germany that were smashed and destroyed by the Christians in about 400 AD. And apparently the Romans hated these priestesses, and who they called sorceresses of beginning times, sorceresses of beginning times. And I believe in those sanctuaries there was most incredible mysteries performed, and rituals and ceremonies. And of course it was said by the Christians and the Romans, you know, there were licentious, and there were orgiastic, and there were horrendous, and there were wild, and there was horrendous music, and you know, and not only that, there was also gay men, priests, who danced with bells on their toes and gyrating hips, you know, and had dancing with, imitated the cranes dance with their arms. When I read that, I sort of almost my hair stood on end, because I've always danced like that myself. I've always danced like a bird's wings. Do you know what I mean? And the point is that those male priests were dedicated to the mothers, and they were dedicated to Frey, who was the brother of Freya, who was a great ecstatic, nothing to do with fertility, nothing to do with fertility. Freya was not the fertility goddess, but it had to do with tantric, a kind of tantric sexuality, but not male controlled. You know what I mean? Women's tantric sexuality. And Frey was a very benevolent ancient god of the north, long before Odin and his priesthood arrived there. So anyway, so it seems that also this, you know, that he was both this gay male priest of the goddess and of Frey, who danced and performed in the sanctuaries, as well as the priestesses of. And I just have a sense of that there was some incredible things happening there. And these are the Norns. These are also the Norns of the north. And in Uppsala, the great pagan center of the north, where they built a pagan temple, which was known late in time. But that temple was built very late, but when Odin had already come into Sweden, and Odin and Thor and so on. But there, before Odin arrived and this Indo-European warriors arrived, Uppsala was the center of the DC. The DC was the goddesses, the Nords, the goddesses of the earlier people, the Vandal people, who were matrifocal people, who lived in the north long before the Indo-Europeans arrived. They were all European people. So Uppsala was also center of, dedicated to these ancient mothers. And I think, for example, at Bath, we talk about the Roman baths, I believe, my theory is that there were triple priestesses, like the three mothers that are carved there, somewhere in the Roman baths, who actually prophesied, I believe, breathing in the sulfurous smoke, the sulfurous steam coming from that, the gap, where the hot waters are coming up, it's steaming there all the time. It's like sulfurous, and I think that they would have breathed in that and gone into trance states, prophesying, like at Delphi, that's what I believe. That was the place where they did the oracle, where they were the oracles. But anyway, I feel this is ancient, sacred mysteries of Europe, of old Europe, that we have forgotten. And I just sense there was something really important there, just really important there. But they need to try to understand, and that the Christians totally managed to wipe out, and also throw the witch hunts, of course, You saw the Matrona. And how I saw the Matrona was that I had at that exhibition I was talking about women magic, was shown in Frankfurt. No, sorry, in Köln, in Cologne. You call it Cologne, it's Köln. But by the huge cathedral in Cologne, there is a museum called the Germanic Roman Museum. And one of the women in Köln dragged me along to this museum and said, I got to come and see this. And there was this beautiful stone-carved images, or stone-carved sculptures, what you call it, of the Matrona. It almost looks like Afro headdresses, lunar headdresses. And it's not like Maiden Mother Crone. These are three elderly women, holding baskets and fruits and the good things of the earth, and and there was lots of them, lots of these carvings there. So it seems that underneath the cathedral at Cologne the Romans had built a temple dedicated to Dionysius. It's a large mosaic floor of Dionysius. But underneath that was an ancient holy well, where the Matrona would have been prophesied by that well. So there's different layers, underneath the cathedral. And I studied this closely when I was doing a painting of a goddess in Cornwall, and I do not believe these are male figures. They are female. They're old women. If you're painting something, you look at it very closely, and you discover all kinds of things that you didn't notice. That's what I think is one of the wonderful things about drawing and painting. That you suddenly realize was actually there. And of course that's from the Roman baths. And this is I call this, it's an 8-foot painting which I call St. Non's Well. What do you call it? The chalice. St. Non's Well and the chalice, the grave, the chalice. St. Non's Well is to me one of the most holy places on earth as well. Holy, yes, wonderful, wonderful well. It is on the coast of the Pembrokeshire coast by St. David's. And this is also my interpretation. This is also based on a sculpture at the Cologne Museum of the Three Mothers, sitting by the well. St. Non's Well. And I've been going to St. Non's Well ever since 1980. It's one of my most holy places in the world. And it's a trance well, healing well. And it's a Catholic retreat. In this case, I must say I'm grateful to the Catholic Church for actually protecting these ancient places, like they protect St. Winifred's Well up in the north of Cornwall. That's also a Catholic shrine. Also a marvelous, miraculous place. And by the way, in the old world, in the medieval times, 2 pilgrimages from St. Winifred's Well in the North Wales, North East Wales, to St. David's was as important as 1 pilgrimage to Rome. That is how important it was. And I believe that the pilgrimage wouldn't have gone just to St. David's, but to St. North Well. And this is my interpretation also of course, the Norns weave the whole of the universe, vibrant, electromagnetic, or like, you know, like the physicists talk now about, they talk about threads and waves, and you know what I mean, like the whole of cosmos is built up by these strings and threads, and you know what I mean. And this is the creation of the Norns, who created the entire universe as well as a child in the mother's womb, as well as our destiny. Like they were called skuld, they were called världen in skuld, and they are she who was, who is, and will be, who creates, you know. The Norns are more ancient than any gods in the universe, and they are the most ancient beings that exist, you know. And this, of course, this is my interpretation of Spider-Woman, or the Hawkins, who also, of course, weaves everything into existence, you know, the spider's web. And this was another interpretation of mine of Spider-Woman. And this painting I did after the death of I lost 2 sons. My older son died 2 years later, 1987, from cancer. So this is like my sons in the spirit world, protected by Spider-Woman. But the woman at the bottom who's pregnant is my daughter-in-law, carrying my first grandchild. So it's like death and rebirth, you know. So this is my dark mixed race sun and my light sun. In the real Spider-Woman. And this is the Holy Wells. This is St. Anne's Wishing Well, or Trelech Well, which is just across the border into Wales if you're coming from Bristol. It's the most beautiful well, very elaborate well structure. My interpretation of the Maiden of the Crow in full moonlight with a spirit horse. And that's the structure of the well. It's very big. The benches around the sides and people would have sat. What?
Where did you say it?
It's the Trelech well. It's on the other side of the bridge. It's near, what's it called, that huge monastery, you know, that, what's it called? That very, very well known, huge. What?
At Tinton Abbey?
Yeah, it's near, not far from Tinton Abbey. It's a village called Trelech. And it's Trelech because there's 3 standing stones. Lech, of course, means stone. Lech means stone in the Welsh Celtic language. So there were 3 stones, Trelech, standing in a field, and just near them, in another field, is a well called Trelech's Well, or St. Anne's Wishing Well. But I couldn't tell you how to get there. It's not signposted or anything. But it's Trelech, the village of Trelech. And this is, yeah, Sweden again. This is I call the lunar eclipse at Ale Stones. It's a huge stone structure. It's not a. This is a stone. It's in a ship form, and it's right at the edge of the world, right as far down south as you can get.
Where's that?
And it's enormous. It's called Ale Stones.
Where is it?
Very, very south tip of Sweden in Skåne, right down south. Overlooking the sea on a plateau in the middle of nowhere, and it's huge. And I was there on the night of a lunar eclipse, sitting amongst the stones, and it's 28 stones. I mean, it's clearly a moon related in a ship's form, yeah. So of course the archaeologists and tourists they say, oh, this is a Viking grave. No, it's not. I can tell you, it's either Bronze Age or Neolithic, you know. And some of the stones is ordinary granite, some are full of purple quartz. And the stones at each end are large and almost like marbly in effect, and they were brought clearly from very long distances. There are no stones on that plateau, you know, and they haven't excavated there, you know, so they have no idea. They are beginning to say now it probably had astrological significance, you know? But it's a very magnificent place, very, very magnificent place. The first time I was there was in the snow, you know. Alestones, A-L-E. I speak about it in the book, on the Norse models.
Monica, 5 minutes.
Yeah, and this is up north of Sweden. This is another stone setting, which looks very much like a vulva, if you ask me, or a ship. And this is a Bronze Age grave of what I think of as a priestess of Freya. Like that. It's enormous, absolutely beautiful. Right down south, not found from other stones. I've only discovered these places in the recent years, since about 1994. And this was inside that womb tomb, what I call womb tomb temple of the priestess, these carvings or paintings, which looks like hooded bird priestesses. And of course Freya owned the falcon or the bird costume that you put on to fly into the other world. So this is clearly to me her priestesses. Oh yeah, this is very last, just one more slide. This is some graffiti we did in Bristol on some places, also in front of the cathedral actually. The goddess returns protect the earth. And I've still got the stencils to do more. And this is a large banner we did, and we actually put up in Bodmin once, who protect Mother Earth. The other one below was about the protest when Blair came to Bristol, close from where I lived, and he had a tomato flung at him, if you remember. So it's a friend of mine who threw the tomato. And it's a friends of mine who in the banner. Well, that's it anyway.
Thank you. Thank you.